You're listening to It's a Wonderful Weekend podcast party. I'm Steve Searcy, your co host with GL Gooding. Gary is the author of Fresh Snow on Bedford Falls, a new novel that industry experts say is heartwarming in the tradition of the iconic film It's a Wonderful Life.
Steve and I are delighted to be here with actor Jimmy Hawkins, who will tell us about his playing the beloved role of Tommy Bailey in the iconic film, as well as talk about his work with other legends of Hollywood, including Donna Reed, Jimmy Stewart, Shelley Fabares, Paul Peterson, and goodness knows how many more. Welcome, Jimmy.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I look forward to it.
Well, I'm visually impaired, and it was interesting. Not long ago, I was delighted to find an audio version of your book, Wonderful Memories of It's a Wonderful Life.
And yes. I enjoyed doing that. There's a lot of stuff on there, and by the people who are in the movie. That's what is very special about it. And I'm glad you had an opportunity to listen to it.
Well, while I was reading it, I discovered that I was born in L.A. on June 13th, 1946, the day you started shooting the movie.
Oh, at Beverly Hills High School?
I don't know which. I think that's the day that your scenes were started.
Yeah, our scenes were done. Oh, okay. All right. Well, happy birthday to both of us.
Yeah, isn't that a little? I don't think that'll find its way into your next trivia book, but
you never know. You never know. Yeah.
So those listening to this podcast may not have had the pleasure of reading that book. So I wondered if you might share with them how you got the role and some of your experiences on the set.
Yeah, well, an agent, Lola Moore, she handled every kid in the business, and she would send us out on interviews. And this one interview was out in Culver City at the RKO lot in Culver City. That's where the majority of the film was produced. All the Bailey stuff was on that lot, and we went there about 3 or 4 times. And then Frank Capra, he would just talk to us. We wouldn't read or anything. He'd just talk and ask questions, and then he picked this person and that person and put the 4 of us kids together, what he thought would be the Bailey family. Then we came out to the studio one more time, and then he walked us over to the stage, and there was Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed, and they came out and on the front porch of the Bailey house at 320 Sycamore, and we had our picture taken, and he said, "That's the Bailey family." So
wow.
It was quite something. Picture took 90 some odd days to shoot. It was Frank Capra and Jimmy Stewart's first picture after World War II. And they were afraid, really anxious about doing the film. Didn't know if, Jimmy Stewart felt like maybe he should just go back home and work in his dad's hardware store. But because of all the things he saw during World War II and the deaths and just war itself, he thought what he was doing in life was meaningless. And Lionel Barrymore had a conversation with him. He said, no, you mustn't think that way. You did your job during the war, and now it's time to do your work. And you've got to know that you have a special gift. He felt that he told Jimmy Stewart that you have the unique opportunity to speak to people in the dark for 2 hours. And this film is, very positive and uplifting, and you're doing exactly what you should be doing now. And you should be excited about it as much as when you left to go into the war. So he made Jimmy Stewart feel much better about, picking this acting as, his career. So it was just everybody enjoyed doing the film. All the actors, people that came in for a day or so, they all enjoyed it. And people always ask, well, did they know they were making this film? They said, no, it was another day's job or another week or whatever. And they did their best and tried their best, but they never expected it would turn out the way it did. And it was kind of unique, the way it all happened. It's Wonderful Life was never supposed to be out at Christmas time. Its release date was 1947, March or something. But they didn't have enough color prints because of the war for Sinbad, the movie RKO was making. So they rushed It's a Wonderful Life out December 20th. And it really basically came and went. It was not a successful picture. It got up for 5 Academy Awards, but it lost $500,000 at the box office. So it was disappointing to Capra and Stewart.
Well, I found it very interesting. Two things in your audiobook, the Frank Capra's comment about the most difficult scene, which was the one you were in the living room, because of mixing the drama of the scene with trying to balance it with some humor. And you then went on to tell the story about your lines in that scene that actually, from my perspective, helped provide that kind of comic relief in an otherwise dramatic scene. You might
they excuse me.
Yes. You might
right.
share that.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't in the original script. Capra wrote that the night before, and his family, his son Tom Capra, was always said that. It was kind of a running gag for his home, the family home. And it always was cute and everybody laughed, even though they heard it 10, 20 times. Yeah. So he wanted to break up that scene and had me do that action, pulling his Jimmy Stewart's coattails and then saying, "Excuse me." And when we walked from the living room and we were walking to the kitchen, in the rehearsal, we all walked from the living room in towards the kitchen, and all of a sudden Frank Capra said, "Stop, everybody." So then he scrunched down towards me, looking eye to eye, and said, "See where we are right now?" "Yes, sir." "I want you to stop right here, and I want you to say, when you get to this point, keep pulling on his coattail and say, 'Excuse me.' You understand? You see where we are now?" And he was very patient, and I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Okay, everybody, let's continue." So they had the next line or two, and then he'd stop everybody again. He said, "See where we are now?" "Yes." "Well, when you get here, I want you to keep pulling on his coattail and say, 'Excuse me,' right here when you get here." Okay. So he told me to do that again, and that's how that line was born. That day just said, "Do this." It was like improv. Yeah. So he did that a lot in the film. I don't know if anybody knows the story about when they were picking locations for the movie. They were over at Beverly Hills High School, and they asked Frank, "Do you think this could be a location for Bedford Falls, the gym?" He said, yeah, this looks good. Then the AD told him, "You know, Frank, underneath this basketball court is a swimming pool." He said, "What?" "Yeah, swimming pool." He said, "Well, how's that? How's that work?" He said, "Well, we'll show you." So he asked the guy to open up the pool, and then that scene was born. The script was all finished. They were just picking locations. And then Frank Capra, who was a good, what they call tap dancer, he could think of things right away and how he wanted it. And then he went away and wrote that scene and put it in because of the pool being there. He's always improvising and thinking and what could make something better. And that's how that scene was born. He was quite something. He was a very clever man, a good thinker, and didn't go, "Oh, gee, too bad we didn't know about this. We could have written a scene." No, he'd write the scene the night before if it was necessary, like he did with my "Excuse Me, I burped line."
No.
So,
well,
that's
a
little trivia.
There's more fodder for your next trivia book, because I didn't see that particular story in your maybe it is in your trivia book, which I haven't been able to get yet. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's all right. It's all right. I'm sure you have other things to remember.
You've had a long-standing relationship with Carolyn Grimes over the years. I'm just wondering how it was on the set with the four kids interacting together for that time.
Oh, yeah, great. You know, especially Carol and I, because we were closer to the same age. The other kids, Carol Coombs was, I think, 9, and then Larry Sims was about 12. And that's funny. When I was writing my 50th anniversary It's a Wonderful Life book, I came across a pay rate for the Bailey kids.
Huh.
And we were doing a Target promotion for the Target stores back in 93 or whatever it was. And we would go all over the country to visit the Target stores and appear there because their theme was It's a Wonderful Life at Target. So we did TV shows, local TV shows, and so we were doing the one show, and this pay rate came up. And the unique thing about it was we all had the same agent. However, we all got different pay, but we all worked the same 12 days. Everything was the same, except Larry Sims got $100 a day. The two girls got $75 a day, and I got $50 a day. And we told that story to the host of the morning show, and he said, well, all different pay rates. I wonder, you had the same agent? I wonder why. And Larry Sims spoke up, and he says, well, I guess they paid us by the pound. And I thought that was always great. That was very clever. So, yeah, it's just strange, same agent. But anyway, yeah, Carolyn, but none of us really met till 47 years afterwards. And I remember telling the girls, I said, well, you know, when we had the wrap party for It's a Wonderful Life, it was a picnic. And they had over 300 of us at a picnic, cast and crew. And it was at a lake called Lake Arthur. It was later called Lake Malibu. And I said, well, you remember all those contests they had, the three-legged race and baseball games and a watermelon contest. I said, you know, I won the watermelon contest. Here I was, 4.5 years of age, and they always kidded me for years, over 20 years, that, oh, yeah, sure, he won the watermelon contest. Well, they did a screening at the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, celebrating the 70th anniversary of It's a Wonderful Life. And they had all us kids there for a question and answer before the screening. And they surprised us with film. They found some film that one of the crew members, I never learned who he was, took 8mm, Super 8mm of the picnic.
Huh.
And there was about 9 minutes, and it showed the watermelon contest and me winning it. And so I told the girls, I said, see, I told you I won that contest. And it took all those years to make them believe me, but there it was, this little 4-year-old kid. It was very funny to see that. And the baseball game, they had Jimmy Stewart was carrying Carolyn around the whole picnic. It's like she was an appendage of his or something, like in the movie, you know?
Yeah.
Would you tell our audience about the photo?
Oh, yeah. Well, they had a photo. They wanted to capture all 300 people. Back then, for taking a big picture like that, they didn't have a wide-angle lens where they could just shoot it and everybody is in the same thing. They had to start at one end and pan the whole group, and it took maybe 40 seconds or more to pan the whole group. And they said, now when now you can't move for this whole, say, minute, or when we get to you, if you're moving, it'll be blurry. So, okay, everybody knew that this is going to take a picture. Now they started on the left hand side of the picture, and Jimmy Stewart and Frank Capra were standing at the end of it. So it started to pan, and then all of a sudden I heard somebody say, go. And I thought, I wonder what that means, And we never learned what that meant until we all received the picture. And when you saw the whole picture, Frank Capra and Jimmy Stewart were at both ends of the picture. It was very clever, and people loved it, So that's when I found out. Maybe other people knew they were running behind the whole crowd just to get to the other end at the right time.
Yeah.
But yeah, Capra was always thinking of stuff like that, and he just great sense of humor. It was a very loose set. People enjoyed themselves. There's no tension on it, and it was a wonderful experience for everybody. And like I said, it bombed at the box office, and the only thing that made it a hit is that somebody at the studio didn't pick up the copyright. And back in the middle 70s, it went public domain, which meant that TV stations all over the country could show it for free. And they took advantage of that. And slowly but surely it built, and there got to be parties. People had parties to watch this film. And that's what made it a hit. Television made It's a Wonderful Life a hit. And it grows every year. It gets bigger and bigger, and more people want to know more about the picture. Why wasn't it a hit then? What did the people get out of the movie? And I always tell them that it's the theme of the movie. It shows everybody they're important, that each man's life touches so many others. If they weren't around, it would leave an awful hole. And that's what they like about it. They go, maybe I've done something in my life that I never even knew I did. Because George Bailey, you look at the picture, he was just being who he was, helping people when he could, lending a hand, thinking of, he wanted to be an architect. He wanted to see the world and see what other architects were doing. And something would always happen that he'd have to stay in Bedford Falls. And what he learned at the end, when he got to see what life would have been like if he had never been born, he knew then that he had everything. When you have family and friends, you do have everything. He didn't need to go any place. So that's what we do today during the holidays. Janie, Zuzu, and little Tommy, we spread Frank Capra's word of how this movie has touched lives for the better. And it's a great message. We all are very humbled that we were picked for those parts, and that so many years later, we're still talking about the movie, and people seem to like to hear it and meet us, and it's a thrill for us, really. It's just wonderful.
That's
we pick up different cast members. Now we've discovered one more, young Violet, Janine Roos. She played young Violet, the Gloria Graham part. She was as a little girl in the Gower drugstore when young Mary is talking to George Bailey, and he's telling him he's going to see the world. He's got a magazine, and he's telling all about it. So she's now joined us. Every year we go to Seneca Falls, New York, where the It's a Wonderful Life Museum is. And we'll be there this December, the first weekend in December. We'll be there for 3 days to meet people. They come from all over the United States to talk about It's a Wonderful Life. There's 2 huge dinners. It's usually packed over 300-400 people, and they just want to talk to us and get to meet us and get our autographs and stuff like that. So it's been terrific. It's, I think, 16 years for Zuzu, and it's like this is my 3rd year, and then I think Janie's been there six years. Carol Coombs. So we enjoy meeting the people and seeing them, and then we usually, like last year, we went into Rochester to the Kodak Museum, and they showed the film at the Kodak Museum for over almost 600 people. And then there was a Q&A there like we had at the Academy, and people get to know things just like questions you've asked. it's a real nice experience, and then they get to see the film on the big screen like it was meant to be. So the Kodak people have been very, very nice to us.
Jimmy, tell me a bit about what precipitated the trivia book, and maybe a couple of obscure facts you found out in putting that together.
Well, sure. Paul Peterson and we were doing the Donna Reed Festival. We sat on the board of directors for the Donna Reed Foundation for 25 years. And we went back to her town for a week for a festival. And high school kids come from all over to our point of view for the festival as they learn how to act. Some people want to know how to direct, how to write a script, all sorts of things that go into making a motion picture. And so we had like 400 students. It grew to 400 students, and we gave out $50,000 worth of scholarships. And so we would teach classes. And so Paul and I had been working together on this thing for 10 years or so. And I said, this it's Wonderful Life's getting to be something. I talk to people and they think they know everything about the film. I said, maybe it's time to write a trivia book. Why don't we do that together? And then a portion of the money we get from the sale of the book we'll give to the Donna Reed Festival and Foundation. So we did that. So we wrote the whole book, all the questions and the answers, and then Paul wrote these different interludes into the story that goes from one part of it to the other. And we turned it in to the publisher, and they were ecstatic. They loved it, and they said, but just wanted to know one more thing, Jimmy. We'd like to have 5,000 more words. I said, 5,000 more words? I don't even think there's 5,000 in it now. What do you want us to do? I don't know. I said, well, like what? I don't care. Just 5,000 more words. Okay. So we're thinking, what could we write? So after the festival, I was riding back in a car to go to the airport from Denison, Iowa, to Omaha. In the car was a gentleman who was teaching. We asked him to come back there to have a class in songwriting. And he wrote the song, Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree.
Sure.
And so he said, we were riding back in the car and talking about this wonderful life. He said, I want to tell you a story. He said, I drew a blank. I couldn't write anymore. And I was having a heck of a time, and things were pretty bad. I had the big house on the hill with the Mercedes, my wife, myself, and my daughter. And things weren't coming, and we lost everything. So we're in a little apartment, and I'm trying to think of things to write. What can I write? And on comes this movie. And he and his wife and his daughter watched it together, and It's a Wonderful Life. And he said when the picture was over, he said we were crying. And that picture gave me whatever it took to start writing. And now I'm back to where I was before. I've written more hit songs and blah, blah, blah. And it just hit me. I went, hey, do you think you could write that to me? And I told him that we're doing a book, and I would like to add that to the book, that story, just the way you told it. Mm-hmm. Tell it. I don't care how long it is. A lot of words. So that started me thinking. So I called around the different guilds and found a lot of the people still alive from the movie. And I asked them all, write me a letter of your experiences on the movie, after the movie, what it means to you today. And they all did. And I got a letter from Albert Hackett, who wrote the movie It's a Wonderful Life with his wife and of course Frank Capra. And the cinematographer and told the whole history about the cinematographer on the film, and just all the different actors we found. Of course, Carolyn uh, and Janie, and just everybody that was still alive wrote something to me to put in the book, and we got the 5,000 words. And the book, they thought they would be very fortunate if it sold 5,000 copies. I said, 5,000? No, this I think it'll sell a lot more than that. Well, we'll be happy if it sells 5,000. Everybody will make money. Well, it went over 50,000 within 3 weeks.
Wow.
And they just were amazed. They just said, my gosh. And I loved that they asked for 5,000 more words, because it became something now. It was about something. It had touching stories through it. And it just was a wonderful experience. And so we, sent the money to the portion that we had promised to the Donna Reed Festival. So everybody, we got a wish, for giving back to Donna Reed, and then I got Jimmy Stewart to write the foreword to Paul and me, and it just turned out to be a great little book.
And I bet you got a lot out of those letters you got from people about how the movie affected
so much,
you.
So much. Yeah. Yes, just was a wonderful experience being able to write it and meet all the people. And then for the 50th anniversary, we took people. Everybody went back to Jimmy Stewart's hometown and Donna Reed's hometown to celebrate the 50th anniversary.
You've done a lot of work with the Jimmy Stewart Foundation as well. Am I correct?
Well, his museum. We been back there, especially Carolyn. We went back there for the town basically, and they had a huge dinner, and they kept us very busy for 2 or 3 days, meeting everybody at different functions, and they had the play running, the stage play. We got to see that.
Hey, Jimmy, we're starting to run out of time here, but I have one last question that I would love to know, and that is, did Frank Capra live to know the kind of legacy that he left with this picture?
Yes, he did. Both he and Jimmy Stewart did, and that was the great thrill of knowing that Frank Capra saw that this was a great film. I mean, it was voted the most inspirational movie of all time. So he just couldn't understand why the picture wasn't a hit in 1946. Mm-hmm. I had a talk with Sheldon Leonard about the film, and he said, the film never changed. The people changed. And the people now need that message from It's a Wonderful Life more than ever. And that's why it keeps getting bigger and bigger. It shows we are important. And Frank Capra knew that basics instinctively back then. And he got to see the fruition of his work. And he said it was his favorite film. He said, that's my favorite. My best film is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. But it's his favorite, and it was Jimmy Stewart's favorite. Yeah. So thank you for listening to my little stories, and it's a pleasure, and I thank you again.
Well, thank you, Jimmy, and I wish you much success as you travel during the holidays here. And I know you'll make it a wonderful life for everybody that you see.
Well, we're trying, and we've enjoyed meeting with the people. And I want to thank you and Gary very much. All right? And happy holidays, and all the best for a wonderful life, you guys.
All right. Thanks, Jimmy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. You've been listening to It's a Wonderful Weekend podcast party with me, Steve Searcy, and G.L. Gooding, author of Fresh Snow on Bedford Falls. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with special guest, actor Jimmy Hawkins from the iconic film It's a Wonderful Life. Until next time, stay safe and have fun.